Hi everyone. My name is Govind Palanisamy. I'm one of the enterprise architecture in global payments. I'm here to talk about AI in financial services for defensive cybersecurity, how we could use AI to strengthen the security from a defensive perspective and help like the financial services industry to be much focus oriented and help like solve some of the real challenges in the world. We are going to touch on like few areas of interest, like where AI can be used uh, in cybersecurity, especially for the financial services industry. One is around like using AI agents across the board to help like secure the environment and helping with the threat modeling, implementing a secure by design concept across the environments as a lot of like workloads are getting migrated into the cloud or like uh, optimized or modernized in an environment, how we can actually like use the secure by design principles uh, using AI to create like security blueprints, control mapping, etc., as well as like code analysis, how AI could be used for code analysis or whatever the code that's being generated using Gen AI, how we could actually like be more safer to analyze the code as well as like apply bug fixes to meet the security requirements. And then how it the AI in defensive security can help meet the regulatory compliance requirements as the regulatory compliance are evolving in the industry across like different countries and different local like regulatory requirements comes into play as well. As it's an ongoing challenge for the teams to utilize unified control framework and how we could actually like use AI to help formulate those unified control frameworks and define a common set of like controls in our environments to meet those security requirements enforced by the regulators, as well as how we could use AI to validate the policy or even generate like policy agents uh, to verify the infrastructure code or uh, the deployment pipelines, etc., to validate certain security requirements from a defensive perspective as well. If we look at the current trends, the breach, like the data breach costs are rising year over year, based on like the Verizon's data breach investigation report, as well as the IBM's uh, the cost of breach reports. If you look at year over year, like it's being increasing. Last year, it is around like 4.88 million spent for a given like data breach scenario. And most of the causes for these data breaches are compromised credentials, misconfiguration in the environments, and phishing remains the most common entry points as well. And when it comes to like the measures, like what measures like we could actually like take to help solve these things, or using AI and automation that can help like reduce detecting the breaches as well as like acting on the breaches upfront, like by shifting things towards left. That's where the security architecture practices, threat modeling, and also like validating as part of uh, the requirements, design, build, deploy going into production. We could actually like implement automation with AI agents across the board. And then if you look at the talent, like as our security challenges are being evolving, there is a skill gap in meeting uh, the security like changes like what needs to be implemented, and it takes like a lot of like teams effort to keep the environment safe and secure, because security is everybody's responsibility. It's it's not like feasible like to keep up with those security changes and without augmenting it with some kind of like agentic orchestration layer. It's very tough to like keep up with the security skill gap, because the number of resources needed in the industry is less comparing to what's actually like going on. And when it comes to the cloud security, how we could actually like make it happen with AI is like we could use AI in the proactive risk management side by utilizing autonomous like risk prediction and analysis solutions, where when solutions are being created, like we could actually like do proactive like risk assessments, and also like use continuous like threat surface monitoring to monitor the environments and create autonomous agent that could actually like self-learn from the security incidents and then apply reinforcement learning to make our environment safe and also like minimize the number of security incidents that would occur as well as like from a defensive strategy perspective, we could apply a adaptive risk management approach to formulate a strategy in terms of like mitigating the risks upfront as well. And if we look at the AI agent capabilities, like it can help us like determine real-time decision making. Say, for example, if there are some anomalies being identified as part of the log analysis, we could actually like make real-time decisions based on the outcomes of those log analytics using agents, as well as the AI agents combining with some of the deep learning models. We could actually like recognize the pattern of access or pattern of like the activities happening in our environment, and we could actually like recognize them across the hybrid environment because most of the enterprises, especially in the financial services, they operate in a hybrid mode with cloud as well as on-prem. So that's where the AI agent capability would actually like help across the systems, as well as a lot of our financial services in this company like are pure like multiple cloud or multi-cloud environments. So it would be difficult for someone humanly possible to understand like both the best of the breed of the environments to understand okay what it would look like in AWS versus Google versus Azure or on-prem or Oracle, right? So it would be depends on various things, but whereas agent can actually like understand if you say, hey, these are the different patterns in this cloud, as well as the hybrid, it can learn and like do the pattern recognition, etc. And also with the agentic capability, what we could do is we could automate those orchestration and help with the response uh, in a meaningful way to actually like cut short the detection time, as well as like help like remediate the situation to contain an incident like quickly as well. And then the AI agents also can actually like help prioritize the alerting capabilities using intelligent alerts based on those anomalies that what it detects. And other aspect, if you look at the infrastructure security, where there are a lot of like platform services being released on a regular basis. So each of those cloud service providers, like if you look at, they have like hundreds and hundreds of services. Every quarter, like they release like a couple of like new services to serve the customers, right? And how do we actually like make sure whatever the services that are released or the platform like capabilities that are being enabled are secured, right? Because for which like we need to have a configuration baseline as well as like the access management, because initially like when there are certain functionalities being introduced, it may be only available through the ClickOps. It may not be available through the Terraform code on day one, right? In some of those capabilities, how do you actually like manage those access and make sure like everything is kind of like codified as using infrastructure as a code? And from a network security perspective, utilizing AI can actually like help like validate, hey, what are the like the ports and protocols that need to be allowed, like what my ingress egress controls that need to be applied, as well as getting the like the net flow like logs analysis, because enabling flow logging can be done efficiently as possible, but at the same time, they are like very cost prohibitive solutions when it comes to like enabling all the flow logs and analyzing the flow logs. That's where AI can actually like help making sure the necessary like authorized flows are enabled, as well as the flows are being monitored to prevent any misconfigurations or any lateral movements in our environments. As well as if you look at policy as a code, right? The policy as a code will actually like help us to make sure, hey, this is my like the secure configuration that what we need to enforce from an infrastructure perspective. and do validation on the code, policy as a code using agents that can help making sure the right configurations are being deployed. As well as like we could have organization level policy enablement to apply org level like policy constraints, be it SAPs on AWS or Google org level policy or Microsoft like security center policies, right? As well as utilizing uh, a continuous monitoring from a real-time anomaly detection standpoint and validating compliance checks, threat detection and automated remediation. These are like very important aspects where AI can help expedite some of this detection to remediation timelines. And if you look at secure by design, right, that's an important aspect in the industry where like security controls need to be applied across the board. But how do you define a security requirements is based on the threat mapping. Say, for example, if you have like a three-tier architecture application which has got like a web layer which would present some UI as well as like some application layer handling sensitive data that's received from the user environment and that storing the data at the data layer, uh, be utilizing the data services or like storing them on buckets. Each of them like would actually like present different kind of like threats based on the MITRE attack threat simulation perspective, or take a like any other threat modeling exercise like a stride, right? As well as like a lot of like third party like threat intel comes, and as the bug bounty program and others, like they're actually like constantly like feeding a lot of like the threat intels, and a lot of like our financial services companies are subscribing to those threat intels. Using those threat intels plus the MITRE attack and using frameworks such as Stride would help us to uh, define what those requirements are. But again, it needs like a lot of efforts from an enterprise cybersecurity team to collate all together based on like various scenarios. So that's where using autonomous like agents can help like gather those requirements, do the analysis, and present something for the architecture teams to take like decisions, as well as it can help like with doing a dynamic risk assessment, as you would have like a develop like a machine learning model based on uh, the threats and what actions and simulations that could happen. Using the dynamic risk assessment profiling would help determining, okay, what kind of like control need to go in based on certain kind of like data sets. Say, for example, there may be application which may be only like handling with public information, but there may be application that handles like confidential information. There could be set of application that handles like sensitive PII and PCI data. The requirements would actually like vary because the risk factors involved are different. So the control needs to be defined differently to from a compliance perspective as well, as we are actually like entering into the arena of like various compliance requirements coming into play. Even if you look at in the US states, if a financial services operate in a different like set of states, they have to like meet some of the state like local like compliance requirements as well, not just the industry specific like compliance requirements such as PCI if you deal with card numbers, PIN security, etc. Right? But also like if you deal with PIA data, like you're supposed to meet CCPA, New York, DFS. If you're in a different set of continents, like your GDPR comes into play, and there are some local regulations where like they have to like be in country operated like compliance controls need to be mapped across, right? As well as like developing security baseline recommendations based on those requirements are important. All it needs has to be very adaptive and like more dynamic in nature. That's where like the agentic AI can help like defining those requirement specification based on all this analysis using a large language model or combined with the deep learning machine learning models as well. And then the design generation, like generating certain designs and data flows need some efforts on the team. Like they have to spend some time. Say, for example, if I need to like define a data flow, I can easily like create a diagram using AI agents or like AI solutions. Uh, when those diagrams like a graph need to be generated or a sequence diagram need to be created for teams to understand the data flow clearly. they doesn't have to actually like go and handcraft them. They could actually like codify it and generate those data flows real quick. And the AI tools like GitHub Copilot or like Google Code Assist like would help generate those like code for data flows like real quick based on our prompts and if we define those data flows. As well as we could use the access controls synthesis to be more intelligent, like when it comes to different access conditions. Hey, when there is a customer accessing it versus like an internal user accessing it, because there are various set of personas, you need to actually like synthesize on those different access patterns, and that's where like AI can help process them and then like provide you best. Hey, these are set of the design elements that need to be in place if this is a customer specific access versus a consumer access or an internal user access based on the data set, what they would have access to through your systems. As well as the AI could help like validate uh, the design, what's being actually like approved versus what's being built. It can take the artifacts from infrastructure code library, CI/CD like outputs. It could validate all those information and verify, hey, this was the approved design, and this is what like got implemented, and identify the deviations uh, from a implementation standpoint. As well as like we could use those agents to do a security control testing and help like use our AI solutions to drive the data analysis and provide us output. What are the like the deviations from the implementation standpoint, as well as it can help like verify continuous compliance verification. Because, for example, you may actually like do an implementation on day one, but like as you're progressing and making some of the changes or enhancing your environment, you have to actually like do a continuous compliance verification based on your design. As well as we could use the autonomous security testing agent to make sure whatever the security controls need to be implemented are validated on a regular basis. As well as we could actually like define self self-healing control monitoring. What that means is if you identify a drift, then how you actually like go and like rectify that, as well as like initiate a PR for some kind of like infrastructure as a code deviation based on your enhancement requirements, as well as like utilize those control validation to comply and report it back to the audit system. Say, hey, this is how like we are meeting the control, and provide like outputs for the assessors and auditors to look at various like control outputs from an implementation standpoint. And it, driving into the AI based like a risk assessment, where uh, as we will be collecting like information on various like data sources, as well as the cybersecurity risks are growing and evolving a lot. So if you look at like company doing like a risk assessment once a year or like once every quarter, it's a point in time assessment. But like, what if we actually like have a automated system that could actually like help doing a risk assessment based on what's being changed in your environment? What are the architecture changes that's happening, or what are the engineering aspect or operational changes that happens with your environment? Based on the threats, like we need to like prioritize the vulnerabilities and help like remediating those vulnerabilities. And using AI driven risk assessment would actually like help reduce the manual effort and human errors, because it's not always everybody is well versed with different technologies, and whatever they are expert in, they would be focusing on those areas. But like utilizing an automated system and AI agents would really help like reducing those human errors and reduce the manual effort. So that way we could actually like continuously like learn from our environments, as well as like uh, apply reinforcement learning to understand like what's going on. The other aspect is like traditional code reviews, like probably like they have like subtle flaws, as well as doing like a SAST versus DAST, like things would get missed. But whereas like if you use AI enhanced SaaS dash, we could identify vulnerabilities faster, as well as like utilize the IDE plugins to suggest like real-time code suggestions from a security standpoint, and or like we could have like a code review assistant that can help like analyze the pull request and then like say, hey, I found the issue with this code where like this particular like line of code need to be fixed, and these are the suggested code, and it would suggest the fix and apply like a PR, where that PR could be reviewed by a reviewer and approve it for the merge request, as well as we could use a security testing agent that could generate like test cases, or it could actually also be used to create exploits to test against the vulnerabilities on the code that's being generated by us. I have already like spoken about like securing the cloud infrastructure, how we could actually like apply infrastructure as a code policy validation to correct like some of the misconfigurations. If, for example, if somebody defined a wide open egress control or wide open ingress controls, like how do you actually like apply and correct those firewall policies uh, using the platform firewall rules, as well as if somebody has set up like bucket to be exposed as a public bucket when it doesn't have to be, as well as like IAM permission being permissive in policies. Or also like if you look at like how we can actually like automate the audits in terms of like generating those cloud logs, CloudWatch logs, or the Azure like log analytics logs for different services, and how can we like define smart alerts based on the logs, as well as analyzing the cloud configurations, where like we could actually like fix the misconfiguration based on suggested fixes as a new PR, and then like monitor the compliance by doing real-time checks, uh, one-click like remediation, where the human in the loop is included as part of the remediation process from an audit trail perspective as well. And when it comes to identity access management, like there are like high volume of user roles and frequent updates as the organization gets complex enough. And if you operate in different geography, like a lot of like different kind of like roles will be there. We could use like AI to drive some of the identity analytics to detect anomalies, suggest like least privileged roles, and even detect like fraudulent activity from a user perspective. Whereas the access review like bot, something like access review bot could be used to define, hey, these are the right size roles for this user, and this user have accessed these things based on in the past, as well as like we could actually like score those user risk scores based on their user behaviors, how they are accessing our environment, what do they do, and are there any riskier behavior, etc. And identity risk can be achieved using advanced like machine learning or deep learning models, and by monitoring those user behaviors. And when it comes to vulnerability analysis and remediation, it could help like prioritize the vulnerabilities, because there are like every single day, if you look at for each of those operating system, a lot of vulnerabilities comes to the platforms, as well as like it takes a lot of time for someone to manually analyze and other things. So that's where AI solutions can help like prioritize the risks, as well as automate fix suggestions, ticketing integration. So that way like tickets can be acted by a agent can create a ticket, but at the same time there is another agent like that could actually like pick the ticket and work on it, and things can be like ranked based on the priorities which needs immediate patching. Say for example, my system, like if I have a system that's exposed to the internet, I could actually like apply a fix quickly for that environment by prioritizing the patching exercise, what needs to happen, as well as like we could apply custom patches, depends on or custom code, where like some of the dependencies need to be updated. And how do I actually like apply them is by using a smart remediation assistant that can say, hey, these are like the dependencies, like this need to be actually like fixed. Here is the fix, suggested fix, etc. That can help like keeping our hygiene of from a security standpoint, as well as AI powered threat detection. It can help like doing a lot of like different anomaly detection, and as I touched upon on the threat modeling in the previous, like it helps like correlating those threats based on your design, and then like provide insights to them. And same thing applies to the threat modeling as part of your attack path simulation from an architecture review standpoint, or your change review standpoint. You could actually like map them. And I, as we actually like analyze this threats, we can identify what kind of like controls need to be deployed. and do it proactively as well. Incident response playbook, these are like standard, like Gen AI can help creating the playbooks, as well as like do enrichment from based on uh, the insights from the different incidents, as well as like we could automate the runbooks using agentic AI orchestration and executing the response actions with agents. And the incident response process can actually like be a continuous improvement based on, okay, what did we do not do good in the past? Okay, based on the past incidents, take the information from that, and then like continuously like adapt from the past learning. Same thing, as I mentioned, we could actually like automate the incident response, as well as like from evidence collection standpoint, automated threat containment, ticket creation, alert enrichment, etc. And the same thing applies from an incident perspective on the security orchestration layer, where we could automate the incident response triggered based on the AI-based threat detection, and make intelligent like decision in terms of like how we should actually like handle different like incident responses, and also like utilize it for root cause analysis. Okay, what went wrong? What are the impacts? What did we learn from it? What are the like the necessary changes that we have actually like implemented to prevent recurrence of this? And then uh, generate a summary like for reporting purposes with the shareholders. So from an AI perspective, like if we use proactive security, we could be 75% faster from a threat detection standpoint and reduce the false positives. And it could also like help like do stage fixes, streamline audits, as well as scalability from a growth and multi-cloud consistency perspective, because as each of the financial services company entering into different cloud, it takes like a some level of like time to reach to a maturity level, as well as like if you look at we could automate things earlier and meet the requirements. And at the end, like what it would solve is like help with ever changing like regulation, complex audits, and manual process, as well as like from a compliance perspective, we could do real-time monitoring reporting, saying, hey, if this is the environment that I have, we could actually generate a report in real time from a compliance perspective every single time to make sure like we avoid costly fines, and making sure that the drifts are addressed. And thanks again, everyone, for your time and listening to me.